to the Prophecy Club. I've got Zen Garcia on the phone. He's a webmaster, video producer, radio host, author of 7 books, and in the ministry for 10 years. And today we're going to talk about his book, Lucifer, Father of Cain. So, Zen, welcome to the Prophecy Club.
Thank you again, Stan, for the opportunity and for being open-minded and allowing me to talk about all these very controversial issues, which I didn't really know were controversial until the publication of my 4th book on this particular topic. But
well, I will say this, that when I talked to my wife, Leslie, about this, she said, "Did I hear you say that Lucifer is the father of Cain?" I said, "Yes," and oh boy.
Oh, yes. So you got it too.
So
huh?
I said, whoa. Stan, I don't have all the notes here in front of me. I'm not, the expert on that. I'm not prepared to defend this. But so we're going to give you the opportunity to defend this. So the Bible seems to say that he is not the father of Cain. So start with explaining that.
Well, it seems to, but as we covered in the very first show that I spoke with you on the Genesis chapter 4, verse 1, that the semicolon denotes separation between, and Adam knew his wife Eve, semicolon, and then the part where Cain is born. I don't have the exactly right in front of me, but those two parts are separated. And when you read, the Targumic, when we covered the Targumic translations that were based on the actual Hebrew Torah and that were read in their Aramaic, and when they were read side by side in the synagogues and they were authoritative and, they reflected what was in the Hebrew Torah at the very early parts of, the people returning back from exile in Babylon and being in Israel again, and the temple being rebuilt, and all the services being held again, that the lay people, the common people, they did not understand Hebrew anymore. And when you look to those translations, it gives further detail as to what Genesis 4:1 was actually stating. And it details that Lucifer is the father of Cain, and that's why he was of ill nature, the first murderer, liar, and deceiver, that he did not follow the nature of Adam because Adam was not his father, did not have the likeness and similitude of Adam. And also, if you look Genesis 4:1, the reason 4:1 is not connected to Adam, even though it seems like it is, it shows that Cain's lineage, because he is born of the devil, is separated, and his lineage is found in Genesis chapter 4, and the chapter 5 begins the lineage of Adam. And I also read the Targumic translation of Genesis chapter 5, which spoke about that Cain was born of the devil, and that because he was not of similitude and likeness to Adam, that he is not genealogized with the sons of Adam, which is also reflected in Luke chapter 3 when you go there and you see the lineage of Christ that goes all the way back to Adam. It goes from Adam to Seth, and Cain is nowhere found within that as well. And so the next passage that I will share, in my mind, also verifies this premise and seems to nail it concrete that indeed the devil was the father of Cain. And I know this is an extra biblical text, but everything that we've done in the first 2 shows were based on the canon. And the second part that we did previous to this one, we covered all of the references that Christ made to this same concept and premise. And we talked about the Matthew 13, the enemy that snuck in the garden, and also the parable of the wheat and the tares, where Christ sends away the multitudes and explains directly to his apostles and his disciples that indeed the tares were fathered by the devil. And he also states again in that Matthew 13 parable, he says that the enemy is the devil, stating that the enemy that snuck into the garden that sowed the tares in that parable was the devil. And so this particular passage, I believe, emphasizes that point. It says this: He who has been created is beautiful, but you would not find his son's noble creations. If he were not created but begotten, you would find that his seed was noble. But now he was created and he begot. What nobility is this? First, adultery came into being, afterward, murder. And he was begotten in adultery, for he was the child of the serpent. And so he became a murderer, just like his father, and he killed his brother. Now, let's break down this particular passage because it seems esoteric in its presentation. But once you understand what is being veiled by the metaphors that are being laid out in this particular passage, it totally makes sense and aligns with everything that I told you prior.
Now, let me just jump right in here. Why is it important for us as Christians, and especially folks that are prophecy students that want to understand the prophecies of the Bible, why is it important that we understand that Cain's father was Lucifer?
Because it's important to understand the world condition of today and what we're dealing with as the final generation, as the fig tree generation, in that we are going to be seeing the forces and the sons of Cain, the lineage of Cain, the New World Order, and all those that are duty bound and serve their father, the devil, and Lucifer, and worship him and not the same God as we, nor do they adhere to the salvation that Christ generously extends even to the sons of Cain. But all of this explains a current world situation, as well as the 6,000 years, the wars between, like in the Old Testament, the dilemma between Ishmael and Isaac, and also Jacob and Esau, David and Goliath. These wars between these two different bloodlines, seed lines, and lineages are everywhere written into the Old Testament and the New Testament. Even the fact that the Pharisees killed, that Christ blamed the Pharisees and the sons of Cain and those that are the den of the vipers, the synagogue of Satan, for killing even righteous Abel all the way to Zacharias. And so they even murdered the Lord and our King. And they're still murdering. And they're hiding in the shadows. They're hiding in the darkness. They were the ones, in my opinion, that kept and hid much of this knowledge until this generation, and that the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, because they are pouring out their Spirit on all flesh, that this knowledge is coming to light in this generation.
Okay, let me ask it a different way. Are you trying to say that some of the leaders of the world, the ruling elite, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, folks like that, are you trying to say that some of them, many of them, or maybe even all of them, are actually of this lineage?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, there was a 12-year-old girl that did a study on the lines, the bloodlines, and the lineages going back to the various presidents. And she discovered that many of them, including Obama and George Bush and Dick Cheney, that they are all blood related and that they have a common ancestor going back to not only Vlad the Impaler, but also to Charlemagne, and that Queen Elizabeth is blood related to Obama, Dick Cheney, George Bush, Al Gore, John Kerry. All these individuals are of the same bloodline, of the same family.
I know we had a speaker back in the late 90s, and she said that she thought that Clinton was actually a Kennedy. And if you look at his nose, you look at him compared to the other Kennedys, and I did, I thought, she might have a point there.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the somewhat illegitimate children are also tied into and blood related with these particular families. And we don't know all that because it's all kept in the hush-hush, but that's why they are brought to and given the presidency and installed. Because even though we believe we have say and representation in the electoral process, We really absolutely do not. We are given the illusion of choice when we have two members of the same family being offered as that choice. Like in the election of 2000 with Al Gore and George Bush, kissing cousins. Same thing with John Kerry and George Bush. McCain and Obama, they are also of these royal elitist families. And so we're not really given choice. And now that they've installed the electronic voting machines, and that there's really no way to have a paper trail or confirmation.
Yeah, for a long time, I think they've been doctoring all of the voting. But now,
Yes.
is this, the things you're talking about here on like Clinton and Kerry and stuff like that, is that your opinion, or are you saying you actually have some proof or at least some books that people have been written on this, or is it just your opinion?
Oh, no, there's absolutely. Even ABC News, CBS News, even mainstream news has come out that, you know, these people have relations and are cousins. And you can look that up on Google, search it right now. You know, that Dick Cheney and Obama are cousins, and there's been, even Lynn Cheney wrote a book about that and presented that information to the world. And also, there's other verification of this. There's other authors that specialize in, you know, the field of studying bloodlines and lineages that have also verified this knowledge. And so it's not an opinion. It's actually been verified. We were talking about this particular passage that, in my mind, absolutely confirms Lucifer being the father of Cain. And I read the passage, and now I'm going to elaborate on it and explain it. It says this: "He who has been created is beautiful." This created being was an angelic being, because the difference between one who is begotten and one who is created is that the sons of God were the created beings. They were the angelic beings. They were the ones that existed prior to the creation of humanity. And so the first two lines are denoting this separation. He who has been created is beautiful. We know that according to Ezekiel chapter 28 and Isaiah chapter 24, Isaiah chapter 14, that Lucifer was the most glorious and most beautiful being, and that's why, because of his vanity and his, being envious of the sun, that he fell and he wanted to be like the Most High. But you would not find his son's noble creations. The reason you would not find his son's noble creations, because as an angel, he was not supposed to get involved with humanity. It says, the second line, if he were not created but begotten, meaning that if he was not angelic but born of woman, begotten of man, that you would find his seed noble, meaning that his children would be a natural creation. There would be his line and his bloodline and his lineage would not be hybrid beings. There would be nothing, like after like, is what the Bible says. The third line, but now he was created and he begot.
We'll be right back after this message. In 1980, an angel came to Dmitri Duduman and told him that it is written in the Bible and that America will be defeated in 1 hour by Russia. I just made a brand new DVD covering all of the secular, real-life proof that Russia really is preparing to do exactly that. Topics are: Arise, Devour Much Flesh, Russia in Prophecy, Russia Now Rich and Strong, Russia's numerous military expansions, Ukraine, and how it is making the bear angry. Russia is warning the U.S., but we're not listening. Russia is building their military, modernizing submarines, aircraft, missiles, and their army, while the U.S. is downsizing and filled with traitors and weaknesses. 2.5 hours, gift of $30. Go to prophecyclub.com or call 785-266-1112. That's The Russian Bear Rises at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. Order today. It's time for the famous Prophecy Club Summer Blowout. You get 6 DVDs of your choice by calling 785-266-1112. Valued at $30 each, that's $180, all for a gift of just $100. Call 785-266-1112. Grab your cell phone, 785-266-1112. Not available on the internet. 785-266-1112. 6 DVDs for a gift of $100. Call now. And now, back to the program.
But now he was created and he begot, meaning that he was an angel, and he did beget children. What nobility is this? And then here's the key line, and the next two lines are absolutely, in my mind, verification of this whole premise. First, adultery came into being. That adultery was the beguilement of Eve that led to her being impregnated with Cain. And we know that Adam calls Eve the mother of all living. The reason he calls her the mother of all living is because she is the mother of both lineages, both the line of Cain, the seed of the serpent, and the line of Adam through Abel, but because he was murdered by his half-brother, we find that the continuance goes through Seth, and that is reflected in Luke chapter 3. This is also reflected in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, where Paul says, "For I am jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you as a chaste virgin to Christ. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your minds should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ." And so he's referring to the serpent beguiling Eve, and that she was not a chaste virgin when Adam came to mate with her and impregnated her with Abel, and then the twins were born, one of the line of Cain and the other the line of the woman, the seed of the woman, and then that would be the enmity. And so on the next part, first adultery came into being, afterward murder. That murder was Cain killing his half-brother, Abel. And then that was also the beginning of the Genesis 3:15, the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And he was begotten in adultery, that's a reference to Cain, for he was the child of the serpent. And so he became a murderer just like his father, and he killed his brother. And so all of that aligns with the Genesis account, Genesis 4, where both Cain and Abel are born. And then you have the murder of Abel by his half-brother, and even the Most High warns Cain to not be of ill nature, not to follow the ways of his father. In Genesis chapter 4, where we can cite this warning, it says, "And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him." His desire, in my opinion, is referring to his father and the nature of his father, meaning that just as Lucifer is referred to, or Satan the devil is referred to as being the first murderer and liar, deceiver, that Cain would follow in his nature and murder his brother. And that's what happened in this particular Genesis chapter 4, and where he becomes jealous of his brother, rises up against him, and slew him in the field. And so that's the passage that I read earlier and prior is alluding to this taking place. And it ties the devil as being the adversary of humanity and being the first murderer and liar and deceiver with Cain and the murder of Abel in that particular passage. Now, there's another passage that we can go to that gives us more information as well, and it's one that many are very well versed and understand and have read many times. Many people, when they cite and speak about Satan or Lucifer or the devil, they read this particular passage and they speak about how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning, and cite other passages that are part of this particular paragraph in this, but they miss this particular part where it says, but thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and the remnant, and son and nephew, saith the Lord. So the abominable branch that Lucifer, son of the morning, the one that says, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, I will be like the Most High, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, into the sides of the pit. This man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners, he's an abominable branch, and he's the one that, just as it said in Matthew 13, the enemy that snuck into the garden, that sowed the tares, he is the devil that is the one that sowed the tares, according to Christ in the other parable of the wheat and the tares, where he cites the devil as being the children of the devil, as being the tares, and that the enemy is the devil, and that he was the one that sowed the tares. And the prepare slaughter for his children, that is talking about his having actual children, bloodline and lineage here upon the planet, and that they are the ones at the end of days where the tares are prepared for the burning, and that the wrath of God is poured out on those not written into the book of life, the synagogue of Satan that say they are Jews but are not. All of that is tied to this information, and it's written and interwoven into both the Old and the New Testament and many of the extra biblical books. I believe that a lot of those texts were eradicated, many of them destroyed. Even the Nag Hammadi codices, which only came to light since 1946, also have this information interwoven within them. And in my opinion, it's critical because it serves as a skeleton key for unlocking all of the Old Testament, the New Testament, and many of these extra canonical texts, and it helps us to understand our current world situation, the New World Order, how all these elitists, globalists, transnationalists are all part of these families, all part of these secret societies, these brotherhoods and fraternities, these secret orders, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, how they do all these blood oaths and go through all these Masonic rituals, and they openly at the highest levels worship the devil and worship their fathers, the fallen angels, and their alignment with that. All of that is based on what happened in the garden, and that Cain was the first hybrid child of the devil, and that there is a bloodline and a lineage on the planet which is aligned to and is the seed of the serpent.
I thought kind of that's where you were going. Let me ask you this. How does this relate to the Holy Grail? Now, I know some people have heard the Holy Grail is actually a golden cup that supposedly caught the blood of Christ. But these guys believe that the Holy Grail is actually, they believe that Jesus impregnated Mary and that his blood has come down through the lineage, and the Holy Grail is actually some woman, and some people believe that's the reason they're so interested in getting the DNA sample from everybody on the globe, because they're looking for that particular bloodline. Others believe they already know where it is. So speak to that.
Well, in my opinion, the whole thing as far as, that Christ came, he did not come for this carnal aspect of this world. He came to fulfill a role and a mission, but that they are perpetuating the lie that he fathered children and that Mary Magdalene was his wife, and that they are of that bloodline, and because of that, they have the divine right to rule, when in reality, they are checking and looking for their connections to the seed of the serpent. Because some speculate, and there's also another part we can do about the differences as far as the blood, because they said that there's triple strand DNA which reflects the seed of Cain and the differences between the seed of Cain with the seed of Adam, and that's what they're actually looking for, and that the blood royals, the elites, that they have this difference in this trait, but that they are trying to perpetuate the lie, saying that they are, the Merovingian kings, and that the Merovingian kings were from the lineage of Christ, and that he's had children, when we know that he did not come to fulfill anything of the flesh other than to be sinless and to die on the cross and to be the sacrificial lamb, the Passover lamb, so that our sins could be washed clean through his blood and through what he did for all of us. Because even after his death, he extended salvation to both bloodlines and to both lineages, and even to the seed of the serpent, even to the Pharisees and the Canaanites.
Let me interrupt you right there. I hate to interrupt, but unfortunately we're running out of time. Folks, if you'd like to have his book, it's called Lucifer, Father of Cain. Now, we don't have it on the website yet, but if you'd like to have it, you can call 785-266-1112. That's 785-266-1112. Grab your cell phone, 785-266-1112.